Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I am sitting down with a recent graduate from one of my programs named Dana to talk about her journey in becoming a professional astrologer. She has a really inspiring way of reaching people on social media. I thought it's really cool, and thought you guys would enjoy meeting her and kind of getting some wisdom from her on what her journey with astrology has been like, both as a student and now someone who's developing a practice. So I'm really happy to have her here today, and I'll be introducing her in just a second. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments on this episode. It helps the channel to grow. You can find transcripts of my daily talks on my website, nightlightastrology.com, where you can also learn more about my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is a program that our guest today actually took as well. Yeah, it starts June 12th, coming up really soon. That's like 5 days from now. So you have just a few more days left to register. If you go to the website, nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, click on that, scroll down. You can learn about everything the program includes. You can hear from some alumni about the program. Dana, today we're going to talk about professional astrology a little bit more broadly. She's not like sitting here to plug the program so much as we are to talk about developing as an astrologer in general. But if you want to hear from some alumni more in depth and at length about the program itself, check out that course Q&A episode that's there. The course includes 30 online webinars, 12 guest lectures, 8 breakout study sessions, year-round support from a tutoring staff in our discussion forum. You can email me anytime. You can keep everything. You can attend live, or you can watch the replays. So it's a very flexible course. If you have any questions about it at all, feel free to email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. At the bottom of the page, you'll find the payment options. The early bird payment saves you $500 off. That is only available up until classes start date. So just until Saturday. We start on Sunday, so you can sign up through Saturday and save $500 off. There's a 12-month payment plan if you need to stretch it out over a year. We also have need-based tuition assistance. Be sure to take advantage of that, all of that, before the class starts on this coming Sunday. So hope to see some of you in class soon. We have all the orientation material sent out. So when you register, if you've already sent something and you haven't heard back from us, be sure to email us. There's the email again, info@nightlightastrology.com, because we have probably already emailed you and it might be sitting in your junk or spam folder. Be sure you check that. But if you're missing anything at this point and you've signed up, likely it's in the wrong folder. So email us right away and we'll get you straightened out. So that is it for what I have to say today. I am very glad to be joined by now former student, now colleague, Dana. Dana, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I like hearing you talk. I mean, the thing that I like to look for, students who have come through my programs who probably, have studied not just in my program, but have been studying astrology for a while and are doing cool things. And you make me laugh. Like I love your Instagram work, the videos that you make. You're hilarious and insightful at once. And I think you provide a really good model for people on how to create a social media game that's not like I watch your videos and I think I can do a little bit better. I can be myself and be fun, and like you just inspire me because you look like you're having fun in the way you create content too. So, and there's a lot more, but anyway, I'm just really happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. And, we're all on social media all the time, especially those of us who are trying to build a business. So we might as well make it fun, have a little fun while we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I got the feeling like every time I watch one of Dana's Instagram videos, I guess I would call them, or reels, they're informative, they're intelligent, they're smart on the astrology, and it feels like I'm hanging out with like one of my friends that's making me laugh. Like it's a very comfortable, familiar feeling. So to me, that's like that's something that we can all learn from if we're trying. Not all of us are going to be called to develop a social media platform for our astrology offering, but if you are, I think Dana makes a great like case study. Like go check out her videos, and I'll tell you how to do that more later. But Dana, I'm glad to have you here, and I want to start with the question that I ask everyone, which is like, how did your path with astrology begin? Where did it get started? Where did the love or interest begin? How old were you? Just set the stage for us.
I'm going to start by saying I have a Gemini stellium and I'm probably going to be long-winded, but I'll try not to be. So
Fair.
I I knew about astrology growing up. Like I would read my little sun sign in my Cosmo Girl magazine, but I didn't really get it. I didn't really ever resonate with my sun sign, which was Pisces. Um, and so it was just kind of a novelty thing that I was interested in, but didn't really like know anything about really. So fast forward through my 20s and I get to my Saturn return. And my Saturn return happened in my fourth house, which is also where Capricorn is for me. Saturn and Pluto conjoined during my Saturn return, and I just kind of had a tower moment, like the Tower card from tarot, where my life had gotten totally out of control. And so I stopped drinking. That was like a huge part of my Saturn return. And in doing that, I really realized that I didn't know who I was. And that was a really powerful, scary moment. It actually happened when I was reflecting on what I like to do for fun, because when you stop drinking, you often have to replace what you were doing for fun, right? Like you're not going to the bar anymore. Or you can, but most people don't want to, right? And I couldn't answer it. I didn't know what was fun for me anymore. And that really troubled me because I was already in therapy. I'd been in therapy for a while. So I knew that I needed a different way in to get to know myself. And I had been exposed to my chart at that point from a friend, but it didn't really resonate as something I needed to explore until that moment. I remembered my chart at that time and I was like, you know what, maybe this is an avenue for me to reconnect to some truth that I'm missing about myself, because I really felt that I was living my life for other people to the point where I had no identity. But I knew that it was still there somewhere. So I started studying my birth chart in an attempt to get to know myself again. And I was able to really identify why I felt that way. And then at the same time, reflect on how that came to be, and then move into a more true expression of how I feel.
That is could be like a textbook, like a couple of pages of a textbook on Saturn returns for a lot of people. Like I found the false me, and had to like reconfigure to, get in alignment with the real me. And I even think of the fact that Saturn, as you know, was called the god of feigned appearances. And that Saturn return hits, and that's when I became an astrologer. That's when I sort of made a commitment to start doing astrology professionally. And it was because I just couldn't go on pretending like my favorite thing in the world wasn't astrology. And a lot of what I was doing in place of that was about other images or expectations that I had for myself, or maybe I had taken on from different aspects of my upbringing or my past. And it's like, that's such a core part of a Saturn return for many people, is that sense of like, is this me? Isn't this me? And sometimes, like, yeah, if you're drinking or something and you go like, well, the drinking is covering up, it's something that's keeping me from a more authentic expression. Yeah, it sounds like that was a really pivotal time. So in that period, somehow you had a background being interested in astrology, but like in that process, where did the light bulb go off and go astrology? Like, how did that happen?
Well, that's a really good question, because I thought I was good. Like I actually stopped drinking cold turkey and was fine, which is really weird. Like not a typical experience, but part of it had to do with the fact that I stopped right before COVID happened. So there was no social gathering where I had to explain like, oh, I'm just having water. And like, I didn't have to deal with any of that because no one was going anywhere.
Mm.
So I was able to really focus on my health and wellness, which was always something I wanted to focus more on. But like all of us were just busy and we don't make time for it, whatever. Also, I was drinking a lot. So it was hard to really prioritize that. So I was able to do that. And I actually started like a little farmer's market business with like healthy cookies with almond flour and stuff. And that kind of got to a peak moment where I realized even that was for other people. So here I was like several months after quitting drinking, thinking I'm killing it. I feel great about what I'm doing. I started a business in just a few months, and really I realized that none of it was for me. So I had to really like get serious with myself at that point and say, okay, you've done everything you could do to better your life. And it's still like, there's still this disconnect. So what is it? And I just came to realize that it was a spiritual part of my life that was missing. So I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school through fifth grade, and I had a bad experience with being Catholic and with church in general. And so I felt really like spirituality was like relegated to religion and therefore not something I wanted to partake in.
Hmm.
But once I got to that part of my life where I'm like, oh shit, even this is not for me, I I just kind of realized that that was the piece that was missing. I needed to cultivate a spiritual life. And I thought that really I started with tarot because I also was, well, sort of similar to you, was like, I felt like I wasn't good enough for astrology in a sense. And it even took me a lot of time after I knew I wanted to learn astrology to get over my own inner critic that was like, you can't learn this. Like, no one's going to want to learn from you. No one's going to want to get a reading from you. Um, but it really started with like the desire to cultivate a spiritual life.
Wow. I think that's amazing because, I feel like, for a lot of people, astrology is like a gateway drug that leads to spiritual life, because it's it's about getting to know yourself. And for a lot of people, that's like a gateway, or it's about just being curious, and it's kind of magical and mysterious. And then, before you know it, you're chanting Om or something. And, it's like it kind of creeps in. But I think it's remarkable that in your case, there was this, I need the development of my spiritual life. So, and also it sounds like, something that probably is not making me feel bad or guilty, or that doesn't contain that spirit of judgment, which I think a lot of people experience in, not just Catholicism, but many, institutional religions, and that's sometimes that's just an unfortunate byproduct of institutions and humans. And I feel like when people, especially around their Saturn return, start needing to develop a spiritual core, it's also because we're realizing there's something about spirituality that it's like the feigned appearance thing again. The religion was sort of like this, something about it was hollow, or it was an appearance of spirituality, but it wasn't getting down to the essence of what I'm looking for. And so I need that. And it's so good that came to me anyway. I'm just reflecting on this. It's so nice that came alongside of the recognition of I can't drink alcohol anymore.
Mm.
It's like you're replacing spirits, alcohol is in spirits, with the spirit or something like that. And so that's a really profound shift. And I think, whether that happens in that order or not, if astrology is something that takes us there, that's a good thing. That's the aim behind pretty much, all of the way in which I produce content, as you know. So that's really cool. So, okay. So what were the first, I guess, channels through which astrology started coming? Did you get a reading? How did it start placing more of a demand on you psychically, saying, I need you to do this?
Well, so a friend of mine showed me my chart. That's how I kind of got the awareness of it at all to begin with. And then once I was like dabbling in tarot, I decided to look up my chart. I think I looked it up on like Astro charts or something, and I just researched. I love to learn, and I just went down every rabbit hole I could go down with my chart, which I don't recommend. um, First of all, don't recommend that strategy, but I couldn't help myself. I just wanted to consume, like, I wanted to know everything the chart could tell me, which was not possible, but I didn't know that then. Um, I started learning about like evolutionary astrology. I was very intrigued by the North Node because it's conjunct my Mercury, which is in Pisces. So I felt like there was something really important to understand about that. And from there, I was just like, whoa, there's more than one way to practice astrology. That's when I kind of started to realize how vast the system is. So I joined Astrology Hub at that point because I wanted to get like a breadth of teachers and information. And that was really great because it connected me with a community. That was something I was looking for as well. This was, a year into COVID, and I was like, I need some friends that like care about this kind of stuff. No one in my real life is really into these kinds of things. So from there, I found out about Nightlight Astrology, and then like 6 months later, I was signed up for your class.
Was it, was it like a podcast that I did with Amanda?
No, somebody suggested you. I forget what the actual question was, but it was something about like, if I want to learn the deeper symbolism of everything, like where can I go? And that I didn't know at the time, but that was really what I was after because, I'm an English teacher by trade. I love abstract thinking and symbolic thinking and archetypes. Like all of that just is like my favorite stuff to think about. So as soon as somebody asked that question, I was like, that's what I want. And then I started listening to your YouTube videos and I was like, this guy really knows what he's talking about. I can tell he's well read. I can tell he has lived experience. And I'm not just trying to talk you up. I'm just saying like, that's why I chose your class, because as somebody who teaches, like a good teacher was really important to me. And I also didn't want to invest in a class that would maybe come from someone who didn't have that lived experience or didn't have that really deep, like foundational symbolic knowledge.
Well, thank you. That's yeah, that's wonderful feedback, especially since we have we've both studied English. Like that's my background before I got into astrology. So I feel like sometimes I'm finding that in my classes that people who have some kind of English background, or like creative writing background or something, find some resonance. It's true that there's a space where usually the inquiry begins, and the inquiry, it's like you get bit by the bug, and you're like, okay, now I need to start drawing some water from the well and reading and taking in talks and finding community, and then it's usually from there that a deeper commitment of some kind, a teacher or a few teachers will like sort of appear. And that's how it happened for me. I mean, when I look at the teachers that I found that spoke to me, it's very similar. It's like I felt like certain doors had been opened, they'd exposed me to things, and then I wanted to go deeper, but then you have to find the right fit for like, who do you want to go deeper with? And I think one of the things that I ran up against was early on, it was like the feeling also of like, well, there's going to be one way of doing astrology that's absolutely perfect, and it's going to have all the real true answers. And in some ways I did land on a tradition, like Hellenistic is like, that's my jam. But I've learned over the years that it's almost more important to find that fit of a teacher or a few teachers that the way they practice, the way they teach speaks to you, and you can take aspects of it on, but make it your own. There's room for that. And if you have a few like that over the course of your career as an astrologer, I think you're very fortunate, basically. I mean, that's how I feel with, the way that and because the system is always going to have holes. There's always going to be some questions, even though I find Hellenistic to be like the most complete package. It's really the humanness of who you're learning from and who you're studying with in community that allows for those holes to be like filled, or allows for the question mark to just exist in a meaningful way. Anyway, I'm rambling. So Dana, so you started studying, you started taking my program. Was the intention, I mean, you're a teacher, so was the intention like I don't want to be a teacher, I want to be an astrologer? Or was it like, I have no idea if I want to be an astrologer, or I want to do it part-time, or like I want to do it full-time? Like where were you at in your intentionality with taking a program,
Yeah. Well, I would say right around the time I started listening to your podcast, I guess January of 21, I was kind of talking about my healing more openly. That's really what my Instagram started as. I wanted to, like, I had the idea of like real self-care, like not a bubble bath, I mean, if you want, that's cool, but it's really about reconnection to self, And so that was really what I was like after at first, but I kept feeling like I didn't really have anything to offer people. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to support people who are sober curious. And so I kind of was doing that for a little bit, but also I was like, I'm not a therapist. I don't know if that's really an appropriate thing for me to do, at least like professionally. And in the meantime, I was going back to school, back to in-person learning. And I did want to leave teaching. And I mean, full disclosure, I still do. it's tough. It's very difficult to
Yeah.
be a teacher. And I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just never really knew what I wanted to do. So a part of me deeply felt during that springtime of last year that, like, I know I can help people. I know that offering my experience and offering what I've learned is valuable, but I don't know how to do it. I feel like I need
Mhm.
some kind of modality. And astrology was helping me so much. So, really, that January to probably April was me allowing myself to practice astrology, like saying to myself, you know what? You can do this. You have something to offer. And this will not only help you, but it will help other people too. So I kind of had to get over myself. But then once I was able to believe that I could really help people with this, I jumped in. So I mean, do I want to leave teaching and practice astrology full time? I don't know if that's possible, but
Yeah.
I know I want to help people. And I know that astrology has been such a powerful tool for me that that's what I'm doing right now. And it feels great to do that.
Right. And if you were to look back prior to your Saturn return, you probably wouldn't have guessed that you'd be, sober and like having gone so deeply into astrology and practicing for others and sharing your story on Instagram. Like you probably couldn't have really guessed any of that. So it's, what I always tell people just as an encouragement is keep doing astrology, keep knocking on the door, so to speak, and keep doing what you love, keep expressing what you love, keep learning and getting opportunities to learn by doing charts and so forth. And every single person I know who's done astrology, that's been the path that it just keeps opening incrementally. Sometimes big steps are taken, and sometimes there's more gradual ones. And if you just keep doing it, oftentimes the transition is somehow just made, and it just ends up happening. So that's just an encouragement to keep going with it because you're doing a great job. I want to talk a little bit about the the approach that you take. For those who want to get to know Dana's work, check out selfhelpwitch.com, or on Instagram, she is selfhelpwitch. So you can follow. And I personally and you're on YouTube now too. I think did you just start a YouTube channel as well, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And is that Self Help Witch as well?
I think it is.
Yeah. So consistent. That's good. Yeah. I mean, I love watching your content on Instagram. I think it was one of your first episodes, or maybe your very first, that I watched on YouTube and loved it. Describe the approach you're taking to creating content, because I think it's unique. And what were you influenced by, and how did you decide to take the approach you've taken?
Well, all of this started because I had a very tumultuous, difficult healing journey that resulted in the fallout of many of my closest relationships and a total 180 for the life I was living. There was so much change so suddenly, and I felt very alone. So I knew what I wanted to do was make these tower moments less painful for people through offering, like, hey, you know what? I know what it's like. It's going to get better. So I wanted to bring some levity to healing, because often it's like such this like heavy thing, and like trauma is heavy. Like, yeah, it's hard to heal. It's hard to come back to yourself when you have to face the decisions you made that took you farther away from yourself to begin with. That's
Mm-hmm.
not easy to do. So I kind of just want to be a source of hope, a source of like, let's just have fun with this because it's a never ending journey. So let's keep it fun, let's keep it light, and let's be in community. So that's sort of my approach. I just try to think of like, what would former me have needed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you always have like a little bit of a stand-up comedy act in you? Because your videos are funny.
Okay,
Is that something that's always been there?
so this is a real story. In second grade, we had to go around the room and say what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I said a comedian, and no one knew what it was. So apparently I was already funny then. Just nobody got the joke. But no, I mean, I love making people laugh. Like Gemini Stellium, I love interacting with people, and I love having a good time. But no, that's such a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm refreshed by is that I'm definitely not like, oh, astrology, it should be serious, especially ancient astrology, especially spiritual astrology. To me, it's like I just haven't seen a lot of people who are doing reels and short clips and videos that are educational, that might cover a transit or talk about something like what is divination, or um, a lot of the philosophical pieces from Hellenistic astrology that people are picking up in my program. It is so cool to see someone um, repackaging the ancient practice in ways that are really funny and like fun, because I think a lot of the times when people get exposed to ancient astrology, I think there's this feeling like it requires almost like a stoic, like you should be very serious about this. It's about fate and karma and da da da. And you can tell you're an English teacher. You can tell that you've taught before, because you have a really you make things very accessible and easy to understand and very concise. And then also you have videos that are really fun. And I think that's what I'm hoping more people will do who come out of my programs and go on to start their own practices. People are always asking, how should should I launch something in social media? And I'm like, well, if you do or you don't, that's kind of up to you and your own personality if you want to be a social media person. But if you do, like, I feel like a request for everyone, make it fun and make it accessible, because otherwise people are going to have this impression of ancient astrology that, like, well, that's the dry, serious corner, and I just really appreciate that. That's not at all what you're doing, and how you are building a platform and a following. So all of you listening, don't take my word for it. Go check her out on Instagram, Self-Help Witch, or www.selfhelpwitch.com. I want to go to your website and actually ask you to take us through some of what you're doing or offering. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me make sure I have it up over here. So, at what point did you know, like, I'm going to start offering readings?
So I actually started offering readings last summer. I did about 30 practice readings last summer, and then school started and I was like, ooh, I don't really have time for this. So I kind of was just taking practice readings for a while. And then I launched my website maybe in January or February. So I've been doing, like 5 or 6 a month. It's been a few months basically.
Yeah. I knew it's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
If you go to selfhelpwitch.com, you can sign up for the scoop. And then you have, so there's a couple of things up here. I'm going to go to the astrology services first. The podcast, Instagram, check it out. And then astrology services. So go to astrology services, and this is where people can check out your readings.
Correct.
And one of the things that is great about doing a reading with someone who is, let's just say earlier on in their practice, is that you have a ton of enthusiasm. And you can see that when you check out your Instagram offerings. But, even though I do a million readings, and I feel like everyone gets better with time and experience. But the other thing that's true is that when I first started, there's just such a freshness and so much enthusiasm in your first couple of years of reading. And it's really special to get a reading with someone who's smart and talented, and also like in that explosion of growth phase with reading. So I highly recommend checking it out. But tell us, like, what does a reading look like for you? What do you do with your clients?
So I try to make them really special and unique for each person. My kind of approach to a birth chart reading, and I talked about this a little bit on my YouTube video I just published, but I see the birth chart as a mirror rather than like a map. And that when we look in this mirror, it kind of reflects back to us what we need to see. And in that way, we can always go deeper with whatever we need to learn about right now. And then when we look at the chart again later on, we're going to see and notice something different, or it's going to present itself in a different way. So what I try to do with the chart is I sit with it, I let it kind of reveal itself to me, and I take a lot of notes. One cool thing I do that I feel like is unique to me is I make a birth chart wiki for each client. So I kind of turn my notes into this cool little wiki that has all kinds of information about the elements of the chart, like the signs, the planets, the houses. It's got a little table of all of their placements. And it's also where I house the recording. So all my clients get this really cool, like, again, wiki of their birth chart with the recording. And then I offer a 15-minute follow-up call as well, because I found in the readings that I've had, I always have questions later. I really need time to process. And I want to offer my clients that kind of support, because really what I hope to do with these readings is help people go deeper with themselves. And if they need another, call to do that, I'm happy to offer that.
For sure. So check these out again on the website, which is www.selfhelpwitch.com. There's some other cool things to check out as well. The intentional course design and the custom systems for creatives. You also work just basically, if I had to summarize it in terms of my understanding, as a kind of creative consultant, helping people unleash some element of their own creativity. Is that how you would describe it? Maybe I'm not doing such a good job.
No, I think that's very accurate. I feel one of my strongest natural gifts is curriculum design. I love creating learning experiences and thinking about how to structure content for maximum learning. And I see a huge need for people to get support with their systems when it comes to creativity, because I think creative people tend to think oh, I don't need a system, or systems are weird and I don't want like that. But actually we need systems to create things. It creates the container for something to grow in. So that's what I hope to help people with is, what do you need to create? How can we make creation more fun and streamlined and simple for you? And then I also want to help people create their own courses, because I think there's so much that goes into creating a course, as you know, like aside from actually creating the course itself, that often that can kind of get pushed to the side. But actually, that's the most important part. So right now I have a wait list for this course, Intentional Course Design, Creating Evergreen Digital Courses, where I really want to teach people how to organize their course for maximum impact for the students. So it's all about leading with value, and it's all about being the best possible guide for your students so that, they become advocates for you and you are really doing what you promised them you'd do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some people, they may say oh, it's you don't need a class in how to teach a class. It's well, if you want to, all of my programs, all of any success I would attribute to any of my programs go back to the fact that when I was in graduate school, I had, multiple semesters of how to design and create curriculum, right? Because I was going to be an English teacher. And so curriculum development, coming from someone who's been through that kind of training and can pass it on. I mean, I would say 90% of what I consider to be the best features of my program came because I sat with people who were professionals in developing curriculum and they taught me how to build curriculum. That's exactly what you're doing. And especially for people who are already astrologers or who are budding astrologers, you have a small friend group, or you have some audience built in that could take an intro to astrology course, even just one night. And it's something you want to be able to do every couple of months or something. I think offerings like this are really important. And to me, it's almost like a sub, because I mean, look, if people ask me, well, how did you learn to teach a course? What am I going to do? Say, go get an MFA, go get an MA in English. That's where I got it from. And that's, most people are not interested in that. So we need someone doing this kind of stuff, especially for people who are creative, smart, but they may not know exactly what goes into creating a syllabus or a meaningful curriculum arc, so I just love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And I think it's probably the English student in me that was like, oh, look at what she's doing. It's fun. And so I just love it.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. I want to move toward the conclusion of our interview by asking maybe one or two last questions. Basically, I like to ask every guest on the show, after kind of sharing their journey and how they've developed, so that people can just, the more you hear stories, especially from people who are in those early stages of launching their career as an astrologer, the transition has been made or it's in the process of being made, maybe, well, you get a lot from hearing these stories. What advice do you have for people who maybe where you were even just a few years ago, or maybe who are in the midst of trying to figure out how to use social media, or trying to, figure out how to, what advice, if you had to give a few pieces of advice for students or young, early developing astrologers, or people making the leap to professional astrology, what advice do you have?
Well, if you're just kind of starting to learn about astrology, I would say pace yourself. It's really tempting to dive in, and like you can dive in. I would recommend starting with a specific element. So maybe you're really interested in moon signs. That's an avenue you can go down, and it's specific enough that it won't overwhelm you. And I think broad enough that you can really like get a lot of different perspectives. And then from there, you can probably encounter a teacher or two that you resonate with. So that's what I would recommend. Also, books, all the books, read every book, especially books that, again, really speak to you. So don't feel like you have to start with like a textbook or like Astrology 101. You can, but it might be more meaningful and exciting for you, which like, isn't this the point? To start with something that you're really intrigued by. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. What about if people are learning astrology and they're scared to give readings? You've
Mhm.
gone through that. What advice do you have?
You are your own harshest critic, number one. Don't stop yourself from getting better because you're afraid, because what's actually going to make you better is doing it. And you can quote unquote expose yourself as much as you want. So start by reading for people you know if you're really worried about it. And if you don't know anyone that's into astrology, um, find a community, like find a place where there are other like-minded kind of spiritual, astrologically inclined people, and you will find an avenue for some sort of give and take, some sort of situation where you can practice. But the main thing is you have to practice. You're not going to know if you're any good if you don't prove to yourself and actually practice and do it, right?
Good. Yeah, that's solid advice. Um, I think the other question that I have, because I do think this is your strong suit again, is I mean, I'm sure you have many, but this is the one that popped out right away for me, was like, I'm scared to do social media, Dana. What do you have to, what can you tell me if I want to do it, but I'm scared and I don't know where to start?
Mm. Well, I will first say that that was me too. And that might be hard to believe because of like what you're saying, Achuda, but truly like it's hard to show up. So first of all, I get that. Second of all, don't feel like you have to be somebody else. Like all you have to do is show up and be yourself. I think especially with Instagram, people want to connect. They're not trying necessarily to be impressed by your knowledge, like it's really more about how you show up. And another kind of idea that's really helped me with this is the idea of embodying an archetype. So you said something earlier in the show about how you felt like you were hanging out with a friend. One of my archetypes that I really try to like think about when I'm creating is like a cool big sister. I am a big sister in real life. I have 3 younger siblings, and that's the energy I want to bring to my content. So that also helps me kind of separate myself. Like the self-help witch is not Dana, right? Self-help witch is something different. And I think sometimes when we're showing up on these really like personal social platforms, we make the mistake of conflating our metrics or our likes or our followers with our worth. And
Hmm.
it's really not about that at all. Um, don't make it more pressure than it needs to be. Just show up and have fun, and good things will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, if there's anything I've learned year after year, it's exactly that same thing in terms of even getting a little bit better or more comfortable with it over the years. It's the same exact thing. Well, you make it look easy and you have a lot of fun while doing it. I highly recommend everybody go check out Dana's work on Instagram, Self Help Witch. She is one of the people that I follow, and the videos I've shared a few of them with my wife and been like, "This is fun. Look at what I have to brag. I'm like, one of the students who went through my program is doing this. Makes me feel really happy, and yeah, I'm really, the whole purpose of this series is to expose the work and development of people who've come through my programs who are doing cool things, and there's tons of them. So I'm really happy that you could come here today and share some of your insights and the nature of your story. There's a million other questions I know I'm going to wish I would have asked, as soon as we wrap up. But yeah, for now, this was a really great interview. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
For sure. Well, on that note, everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments, click the notification bell for updates. A big thanks to Dana for being here today. Again, transcripts of my daily talks can be found on nightlightastrology.com. You can find a recap of this talk there as well. Don't forget that on June 12th, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic starts, the same class that Dana took. And year 2 and horary programs also begin this weekend. You have a little bit of time to sign up still. If you have any questions, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And don't forget, if you want to check out Dana's work, again, it's Self Help Witch, and on Instagram, Self Help Witch. All right, that's what we've got for today. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.